All right, so we're not necessarily late on the uptake, but there just hasn't really been much news Utah Jazz related over the past couple weeks. I was looking for something more substantial. I was hoping to hear some more founded trade rumors, but unfortunately, I was not lucky enough to come across very many. There were a few that had a little bit of interesting traction, but overall, nothing too crazy. Obviously, Larry Markin is going to be on the table. Colin Sexton, John Collins, kind of under the radar sliding in there. And Jordan Clarkson's name has picked up a lot. Obviously, he didn't play a lot last season, both because of injury and also because we held him out of a lot of games apparently. But it's kind of rough because he wasn't having necessarily a great season. We were hoping that we'd have a bounce back year, and it didn't happen. But that doesn't mean there's no juice left in the tank. And I think that it is extremely likely that we don't come into the start of next season with him on the roster. That said, the Pacers are up 2-1 against the Oklahoma City Thunder. It's been a very interesting chess match between both teams, and I love that a lot. And if you're a Utah Jazz fan, I think that you should definitely be watching these finals. Honestly, if you're an NBA fan, period. If you say you like basketball and you also complain because the Warriors and Cavaliers were going at it for 5,000 years in the latter half of the 2010s, right? There's no reason you should be complaining about a Pacers Thunder finals. Two smaller market teams, fair, but they both have die-hard fan bases. And we're seeing a lot come out of here, not just from a player standpoint, because obviously we know both rosters are deep, both of them thrive off the fast break. You could say that both teams can go very ISO heavy, though one runs the offense through Shea. And a lot of people like to call him a glorified shooting guard. But to me, he's a point guard that just has a lot of extra scoring sense. And obviously, that just fits the mold of any point guard in today's day and age. If you look at Stephen Curry, you don't look at Stephen Curry as a traditional point guard, which honestly is probably the biggest knock against him all time in the point guard conversations. But this finals has been one of the more interesting ones. Now, when it comes to memorable chess matches in series, usually you see a series, you see the players, you say, okay, this team's going to win because XYZ player on this side, and then you just have X and Z on the other side, right? So it's unbalanced. And sometimes, like if you were there for the prime of LeBron, as all of us were, having LeBron on your team was the cheat code in the East. It was so great that people called the West completely weak because nobody could thwart his power. In the West, it's always been the Wild West. It's always been a dogfight. Whoever comes out on top is usually the favorite to win the championship. Obviously, when the Warriors dynasty came out, that was also the case. But even outside of that, just any team that comes out of the West usually is the favored one. Now, of course, we've had a couple other teams like the Celtics in recent memory that have stepped up to the plate and gotten the job done. But nevertheless, we're looking at a different type of dynamic between these two teams. Can Tyrese Halliburton give you 25 to 30 points on a nightly basis? Or at all on any given night? Potentially. But at the same time, he's equally liable to give you 14. So it's a world where you have an engine, and yes, Tyrese Halliburton is essential to the team's success, but they could still win without him. There's been multiple games where he scored less than 20, and they've been both in the game and or won the game off usually a Tyrese, game winner. At the same time, though, you're looking at both squads and you see Chet had a little bit of a down game three. I believe he missed like 6 threes in that one, and they just didn't take as many threes as I thought they would have, considering how sloppy they were with when it came to turnovers. You had master classes by TJ McConnell, quiet. He was like the first player since 1973-74 season in the playoffs or in the finals. I can't remember which. It might be just overall in the playoffs that had it's the finals, I think. I want to say it's the finals. 10 points, 5 or more rebounds, 5 or more assists. And he also had like 4 or 5 steals. He had a lot going on. And 3 of them came off inbound passes after the Pacers made a basket. And when you say that out loud, I'll say it again. 3 of them, if memory serves me right, it was definitely 2. It was probably 3, though. 3 of his steals came off of inbound passes after the Pacers already scored, meaning that the Thunder were trying to play up tempo, trying to catch the Pacers out of position, threw sloppy passes 3 separate times, and little old TJ McConnell was the recipient of 3 of them, right? So combine that with a Matherin masterclass, which Lord knows nobody saw that coming, but like 9 of 12 from the field and had like 25, 27 points. I want to say it's 27 in just like 20 or 22 minutes, low 20 ball. Like we're talking Manu Ginobili territory. But masterclass in that respect, both of them played phenomenal games. Not to say anybody else didn't play a great game, but there were a lot of other forgettable performances, i.e., Miles Turner. Now, when it comes to Miles Turner, he's one of those cog and machines players that has always been on the trade block every single time a rumor comes up, just because, yeah, he's good, but sometimes it's very easy to neglect his existence in its entirety. However, this time it was interesting because I want to say he made like 3 or 4 shots, shot double figures though, shot like 11, 12 shots. Basically, he was around like the 25 to 33% shooting from the field margins. However, he had like 5 blocks. And in that second half, particularly in that fourth quarter, he got the job done defensively. And to me, it made up for what he didn't do offensively and what he certainly didn't do when it came to rebounding, because the man had like 2 boards. So when you take that to the side and you look at it on paper, it doesn't look like a really good game for him. And offensively, it wasn't, right? He missed almost 70, 80% of the shots that he took. But at the same time, defensively, when it mattered most and they needed to put the game out of reach and keep the Thunder, at arm's reach, right? At arm's length, they were able to do it. Also prevented Shea. I think he had 6 free throws, if memory serves me right. And Matherin, I want to say, had 8. So Shea didn't really get to the line the way that he usually would. He didn't really get people caught out of position as much as he normally would. And this series was interesting because each game we felt like there was something that the other team could tweak just a little bit. And for the Pacers, usually, the idea is if you want to win these games, you have to play at a very high pace and you have to hit a lot of threes. Well, this game, they didn't hit a lot of threes. They hit single-digit threes, actually. They only had 9. The Thunder had 10, and they still managed to win the game in convincing fashion. Previous to this game, though, it was a circumstance, obviously, 2 road games, right? Over in Oklahoma City. The Thunder have the advantage. They have the crowd noise. They have the vibe. They have the energy. Everything's going their way. And then you have the Tyrese game winner that literally, that was the only time that they were leading the entire game. They were down the entire game up until Tyrese hit his game winner. And they were up. Game 2, I want to say it couldn't have been more than maybe 4-ish minutes that they were in the lead that entire game, right? Lost that game. So 1-1, looking like the Thunder are winning. They're the favorites, obviously, in betting odds right now. And they just look like they were getting the job done. It looked like, okay, they let one slip in game 1, not they got outplayed in game 1 for obvious reasons. I mean, if you lead all but, 3 seconds of the game, that's a pretty darn good game for you. Not going to lie. You just let it slip at the last second and you can't let that happen again. That's the mantra going to game 2. They handled them in game 2. That wasn't really an all-time great game. It was just a convincing win by the team that should have won that game. Coming into game 3, you're like, okay, how can they make this close? How can they win? Threes. Did I think that you were going to have somebody other than Tyrese or, Siakam leading the Pacers in scoring? Absolutely not. But I should have assumed that it was a possibility. Heck, it could have been Miles Turner. It could have been Miles Turner next game, for all I care. They're that deep. They're that capable. And it just seems like somebody always has their hot night. And in limited minutes at that, remember I said it was like 20 to 22-ish minutes, bro had 27. So you don't need an entire half. You don't need an entire game. You just need enough time to get off and give your guys the opportunity to lock in on defense, create havoc, create turnovers, show a myriad of mix of looks. There were a lot of blitzes on Shea. There were a lot of double teams, but they didn't keep it consistent. No, they switched it up. They made it spicy. They made it interesting. And because of that, he had to hold the ball longer. It took a little bit of a longer moment for him to gather himself and figure out what he wanted to do when he had the ball in his hands. But ultimately, it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and he's going to try and be efficient anyways. Game 1 and 2, incredibly efficient. Today, like 5, 6, 7-ish turnovers. So, and overall as a team, I want to say they had 17 turnovers, which if you're a Jazz fan, we average like 17, 18 turnovers per game on a nightly basis the entire season. And that made us lose games. So obviously, if you're turning the ball over a lot, and J-Dub didn't have a great game holding and controlling the ball either, I believe both of them combined for like double-digit turnovers for sure, like at least 11, I'm pretty sure. So when you have that between your 2 main ball handlers, it's going to be a long night. You can still try and get stops, and they were pretty decent defensively. But when you keep turning the ball over, you're not getting a lot of threes off. Chet misses like 6, and he doesn't have a really good game. Now, granted, Granted, we're not going to sit here and say Chet was terrible because in the first half, Chet was there. He had like 13 to 7, something like probably 15 points. I'll say. I'm ballparking right now because I'm going off the top of my head after rewatching the game. But he had like, a calm 15, was doing his job. Second half, things fell off the rail. Didn't get back right in the fourth quarter. Game ended, and he had a forgettable performance now. At the same time, it's going to be interesting to see game 4, right? Obviously, Indiana, the Pacers team, as I've told Jazz fans time and time again, that's the squad that you want to watch. Honestly, you could watch the Thunder as well and focus on how they play and just the pieces that they have on the board because, like I say always, and everybody says across the globe, both teams are really deep. But the type of depth is a little bit different because when you think the Thunder need to win, you think Shea 30 ball. You think Shea 30 ball, 6 boards, 5 to 7 assists, right? Throwing a couple steals, maybe a potential block. J-Dub double figures, Chet double figures, you know what I'm saying? Solid Isaiah Hartenstein minutes, heck, Alex Caruso masterclass game. Those are the things you think of. When you think of the Pacers, you think somebody scores 20, somebody else helps out, another guy helps out, and Tyrese hits a big shot. That's it. That's it, right? It's not Tyrese Halliburton gives you 25 a night. It's not Pascal Siakam gives you 25 a night. It's somebody gives you 25 tonight. And when you have that ability, it's really interesting because it takes a lot of pressure off your superstars. And now we're having a conversation. Okay, well, is Siakam the superstar of this team? Or is he a superstar, period? Or is Tyrese Halliburton a superstar? He's hit a lot of game winners, right? It could be recency bias that everybody's looking at it. But at the end of the day, it takes some big kahunas to hit those shots, to take those shots, and to feel like those are shots that you can make. Shots that you can make. You can make those shots. And Tyrese Halliburton has done it this playoffs, right? But at the same time, if you can win games and he can have for lack of better phrasing, a bit of a dud of a game, it throws into question, well, is he a superstar? And I've been a proponent of me saying he's not top 15. I don't think Siakam's top 15. I'm amending that a little bit. They might be closer to like 17 in my head before I had them at like 23. But when I was listening them out, I was like, I might have been a little bit brash with my statements. But at the same time, I'm still confident in the fact that neither of them are top 15 players. If you want to say they're fringe, it gets a little rocky in those waters once you start getting up to like number 13 on my list when I was going through. But at the same time, they're here in the finals. They earned to be in the finals, and they beat good teams in convincing ways to make it happen. So whether you think they're top 15 or not, right, they're really solid players, and that's the overarching theme. But you don't think about Siakam or Tyrese the same way you think of, Steph, KD, LeBron, Giannis, Jokic. They're not in that conversation, right? And if you even want to go a step further and take this year's MVP, Shea, right? They're not in that. That's 6 players. They're not in that conversation. When you think championship team, you think, I need one of those guys. I need one of those ones where any given night he's dropping 30 and I can believe in that. If I need a masterclass, I almost guarantee that he's going to give me that. That guy, yeah, he's like that. Not only is he like that, but I guarantee you in my moment of weakness when I have no cards to play, I sit down, I put the clipboard down and I say, yo, what do you want to do? What should we call? How can we get a bucket? How can we get you a bucket? How can we make us look good as a squad? And you put the ball in that player's hands, or you listen to what that player has to say if their IQ is that high. Not to say that Tyrese's IQ isn't high, not to say Siakam's IQ isn't high, because it definitely is. That's how they made it this far, right? But you have Rick Carlisle as your head coach, and he's been here before, right? He's had a squad that wasn't the greatest, right? He had to beat Kobe in that West. He had to get through that Wild West. Then he came against the juggernaut that was to be, right? And some people call it a super team. Some people don't call it a super team. Either way you feel about it, it was a really, really darn good team, the Miami Heat. They were. And they got it done. So much so, and in such convincing fashion, people say, LeBron, what happened? We treat it like it's the one blemish on his career. Think about it this way. A coach and Dirk Nowitzki with, an aging Jason Kidd, Jason Terry and company managed to get the job done. Managed to make LeBron look ordinary. They made LeBron look regular. And now you have that same coach coming here against a young Thunder team with a up and coming, coaching staff, a lot of players that are and some savvy veterans. Let's not forget about those guys. You have Alex Caruso, who's been here, done that before with LeBron multiple times. Obviously he had to take a detour, went to Chicago, but he's back in the playoffs. He's back playing meaningful basketball, and he's showing you why he's one of the best guard defenders in the league. But at the same time, you're looking at the other team, and it's just a bunch of guys, just a bunch of dogs. Yeah, they have fun. Yeah, there's, the dark magic, witchcraft, whatever you want to call it, all those memes going around, and they're absolutely hilarious. But when you take all that aside and you just look at the basketball, it's a bunch of guys that do their job. And when somebody you think is going to step up doesn't step up, there's another guy who comes in for a couple shared minutes and he does the job. Or he did something so similar and so necessary that it just completely circumvents any issue that you had with the previous circumstance. The previous situation doesn't matter anymore. Now, again, I said, games 1 and 2, they weren't playing in their pace. They weren't doing what the Pacers wanted to do. You know what I'm saying? But in game 3, in both of those games, they weren't terrible games. Game 1, they won. Again, they stayed in the game long enough to make something happen in the end. So much so that in game 2, you had J-Dub sitting on the bench saying, hey guys, we're up 15. They're comfortable. We have to push it. They feel comfortable. You know how crazy that is? Granted, yes, we're in the modern NBA and everybody shoots threes and stuff like that, but 15-point lead, second half, they're comfortable. And I quote, again, they're comfortable right now against a team that does not have a consensus top 10 player, against a team that arguably doesn't have a consensus top 15 player. They're comfortable. You had the number 2 on the other team in a championship game saying, they're comfortable. We have to push it. And that's how the Thunder are. Right? That's what's been implanted in their brain. Because in game 1, they thought they had the job done, but they watched the Pacers do it all through the playoffs. Game 1, Tyrese Halliburton, game winner. Game 2, they said, no, we're not letting it happen. Closed it out. Game 3, well, they got handled, right? Now, I don't know if it was, a little bit of fatigue, if it was the fact of, I want to say it was like a 3-day break in between games 2 and 3. But this next game, I think it's a 2-day break. So we're good. We're happy. We're complacent. We're pleased. Or maybe 1 day. I think it's Friday night. Today's Thursday. Whatever the case may be, it's a shorter break this time. So I'm thinking that we're going to see a little bit more continuity between the previous game. I think that the Thunder are going to be properly rested and adequate. They're not going to turn the ball over the way they did. I can tell you that much. They're not going to have another game where they turn the ball over in the way that they did. May they have another game this series where they have a bad turnover day? Yes, but not giving the same turnovers they had this time. Like I said before, those inbounds turnovers were egregious. Off a made basket, you cannot turn the rock over underneath the basket. That can't happen at all. If you throw a bomb down the court and it gets picked off, it happens. So be it. But underneath your own rim that you're defending, when everybody's going down the floor thinking they have an advantage in numbers, and you turn the rock over, can't happen. I don't see it happening multiple times over the rest of this series. I'm still on the side of the Thunder, though. Yes, they're down 1-2, but I'm going Thunder in 6. That was my original prediction. I don't know if I said it in the previous video, but my previous prediction was Thunder in 6. I'm going to stick to it. Obviously, that gets bust wide open if the Pacers win this next game. If the Pacers win this next game, it's going to be bad. It's going to get wicked. There's a lot of teams that are watching this because there's a lot of teams that are saying, do I need an incredible guard? Or do I just need a guard in the clutch who can make something happen when I really, really need somebody to execute? And then I can just spend my money elsewhere and get a bunch of guys that are pretty solid. If I can get 8 solid guys and one of those 8 guys is just like slightly more solid than the other ones, that can win. That can win me a lot of games. That's what we're seeing here, right? That's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot of cogs in the machine, a lot of pieces on the Thunder side, and then Shea, right? And you could say Chet and J-Dub are like 2 and 3, but they're not solid 2 and 3s. J-Dub has not been a solid 2 this entire playoffs. I refuse to believe it. I haven't seen it on paper. I haven't seen it in the game. Watching it sometimes. But also it's kind of the way they're using him because he's one of those guys where he gets to a rhythm. You let him have the ball and he does his little thing. He's not going to dribble the ball 20 times, but he's also not going to dribble the ball twice. He's not a catch and shoot demon. He's not a, quick attack and go. He likes mismatches. He likes opportunities. He likes to catch the defense out of position. That's the type of player he is. So when they don't really have a lot of that offense, being generated or configured into the game plan, it makes things really difficult for him because that's not the way that he thrives. So you're having a guy that likes to get his own rhythm, that likes to get a little bit shaky bakey, and he doesn't have the opportunity to do that. So he's not looking like a number two, and he hasn't. Not to say that he's been terrible, because I wouldn't go that far either, but he just hasn't looked like a number two on a championship caliber team. But at the same time, it's been okay because the rest of his guys are competent enough, and you have guys that can come off the bench and be competent enough, and then you have Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who is by far individually the best player on the court at any given time, right? But you look at the Pacers, and here you are, you're down 1-2 against a squad that has the power of friendship, the power of God, the power of Christ, the power of the dark arts, whatever you think it is. Plus the wizard Carlisle as their head coach, and Tyrese hit a 3, hit a 2, hit a 1, whatever's gonna get me to get the win. Halliburton, right? Mr. Helly himself, and Pascal Siakam just out there chilling. And co. And neither of those two are, phenomenal individual players. They're really, really good players, and they have really, really good moments. Particularly, obviously, Halliburton. That's what this entire playoff run has been. Halliburton in the clutch being borderline unstoppable. That's it. But when you look at the numbers across an entire game, Halliburton looks human. Shai in most games doesn't look human. In game 3, he looked human. They made him look human. And if you're a team like, the Utah Jazz, heck, the Hornets, the Wizards, the Bulls, you're looking at this and you're eyeing it and you're saying, how good does my number one actually have to be compared to how good does my 6th, 7th, 8th man on the bench have to be? Because if I can get away with not paying somebody, $300 million, yes, I'm talking about Jaylen Brown, and I can still be productive. I can still play positive basketball, play in meaningful games, go deep in the playoffs. Let's say you don't even make the finals. Just play meaningful basketball. Be a really good basketball team. Any given night when you step on the court, instead of saying, oh my goodness, please, Larry Markkinen, save us. Oh my goodness, LaMelo Ball, save us. Oh my goodness. Who's that guy on the Wizards? Jordan Poole, Alexander Sarr, somebody save us. Kobe White, save us. You could say, Coach, what play did you draw up? What are they playing on defense? Are we mixing things up? Like what's going on, Coach? You're looking at your coach now. The coaching matters now. This isn't one of those Warriors things where, Steve Kerr just took Mark Jackson's system, tweaked it a little bit, gave it a little bit of an injection, and now all of a sudden they're flying all over the court because he has great players. Steve Kerr without Stephen Curry is like a Mexican food truck with no Mexican. There's nothing getting done there. And the food's not going to hit. In fact, it's garbage. Steve Kerr without Stephen Curry is garbage. Steve Kerr is not a top 5 coach in the league right now. I refuse to believe that. Maybe that's a hot take. I don't know. I don't talk to enough people with a lot of basketball knowledge about that particular take to say that and receive pushback. So I don't know. Maybe that's not as hot as I think it is. Maybe that's lukewarm. But either way, to me, Steve Kerr is in the top 5 coach in the league, right? If you put Steve Kerr on one of these two teams, the series doesn't look this way. You have 2 really, really, really good coaches here. And I'd like to believe, if you're a Jazz fan, I would like to believe that Will Hardy, maybe he's not quite at the level of these guys yet. And granted, part of it's because he's never been required to play reasonable basketball. Right? He's never been required to win games. He's never been expected to win games. In fact, most of the time they expect him to lose games. They make players inactive. They say that certain guys can't go. They say certain guys have injuries. They trade away guys for the sake of taking, right? But I'd like to think that Will Hardy has the basketball knowledge and the basketball mind necessary to coach when it matters most. And a lot of people aren't talking about it right now, but I think that this playoffs right here is showing us how much coaching really freaking matters. Your players can be dogs all day, but if you don't know how to use your dogs, if you're a hunter and you don't know how to properly use your hunting dogs, you're not getting any kills today. You're not eating. Your dogs aren't eating. You're starving. And I would like to believe that Will Hardy is going to be a really, really good official hunter that gets the dogs riled up, that gets them ready to go, that gets them revved up, gets the engine pumping, gets the blood boiling, and sets them out there on course to hunt whoever is on the floor, whoever they're playing against, when the time comes, of course, because this upcoming year we're taking as well. For the sake of AJ or one of the Boozer twins, hopefully AJ. But outside of that, I don't want to see any more losing basketball, dude. I don't even want to accept this upcoming season. I need one of these rookies to say, man, I need Isaiah Collier to take the biggest step forward. I need him to show me something crazy. I need him to average 1.2 turnovers and 8.5 assists. That's what I need. I need him to develop a 3-point shot. I need him to shoot 35% from 3-point range on 3.5 attempts a game. I need Keontae George to learn how to be efficient. I need Colin Sexton to finally have the opportunity to do what he wants to do with the ball in his hands. I'm tired of 16-point Colin Sexton. Let him be 22-point Colin Sexton. I want a titanium back Larry Markkinen. I want Larry Markkinen taking people off the dribble just downhill, hitting people with runners, hitting people with floaters, just putting down the hammer too. I just want to see good basketball, man. And the finals have given me that so far, but I'd like to see it in games that I naturally want to root for a specific team. Right now, I'm just happy that we're seeing good basketball, right? But I just want to see meaningful games with a team that I can really appreciate. Nevertheless, sorry about that. Just trailed off a little bit. If you made it this far in the video, as always, I appreciate you. Let me know any interesting thoughts, any interesting trades that you've heard about that have some semblance of, number one, being reasonable, and number two, that you would like to see happen, or that you might think is just blasphemous, even though most people think that is consensus, it's reasonable to do. You just don't think it is. I like to see those hot takes as well. And just any other, news about the Jazz or news about this finals. Let me know in the comments below. I'll take it all into account, and more than likely than not, then I'll have a video maybe 3 days after this one drops. But as always, it's been your boy Wraith Hoops. Good morning, good evening, good night, no matter where you're on the globe watching. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.